this supreme being said, Mark, I want you to be an encouragement to people, and I want you to get them out of their comfort zone. And I said, okay, I will do that. I don't know how to do that though. He goes, trust me, I will make you silly and weird, and they will be acceptance of that, and they will do what you say to do. And it's like, that's what I do with my kids. Aww. You know what I mean? Like, I teach math this way. It's, you know, my kids are like, Dad, you can't teach math this way. I go, why not? Why can't we dance? Why can't we rap? Why can't we draw it? You know what I mean? Like, whatever works to make you understand, right? Very well if you are fearful. Because I'm like, oh yes, I am gonna go to bed, and Rahul's smooth, deep voice is gonna just permeate through my body. Gabe's sexiness is just gonna it's gonna be so amazing. But
your wife's like, what are you listening to?
I know, right? Yeah.
What's
over there? I was gonna keep it PG.
What inspires you to be a creative, and why is that so important to you in your life? What
inspires me and what drives me is that it's fuel. Being creative is fuel to me. It's that simple. It's something that I need. It's something that it puts fuel in my tank. Be blessed. Be the best and fuck the rest. Peace. That's all I got.
Welcome everyone to Woven Wings Live, where we bring you wisdom and tools for vibrant living. I'm Rahul Didwania. I'm joined as always by my co-host, Gabe Crane. And if you enjoy listening to us, please share us with a friend or leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, follow along our journey by joining our newsletter or catching us on YouTube, where you'll find our full-length episodes as well as shorts. And you can find links to all of this in our show description. So for those of you tuning in, welcome again. Today's episode is Filling Our Cup Through Creative Connection. And we're joined today by fellow podcaster, husband, father, and a good friend of Gabe's, Mark Augustine, and excited to dive into this topic. You know, we'll be looking at it from a few different lenses, and we have a little bit of a different format today, Gabe, and I'd love to bring you in and have you speak to what we're trying to do today.
Yeah, I love that. That was like a really professional introduction, Rahul. So I want to cheers you and applaud you on that. And especially because we do not have any professional process around this episode today. I mean, maybe that's selling us a little short, but we decided today to go with an episode with Mark, who, as Rahul, you said, is a podcaster. He's a coach. And he's someone who has become a really good friend of mine and Satori's. Our families have become good friends here on Maui. And we've been talking about doing an episode for a while, and this was just kind of the timing of it coming together. But, just to lift up the veil, or the stage curtain for folks for a minute, usually we have a preparation process. We interview our guests ahead of time, and then Rahul and I get back together and we make kind of a plan, and all that today went out the window. We didn't do any of that. We just basically scheduled a time. And even though Mark and I spent a significant amount of time together in the last week, we did not plan this episode out in a particular way. And so, I think the central theme that we can return to, if you're trying to find somewhere to hang this episode on, the hook to recognize what's happening here as the listener, you can think about this idea of filling our cup and the idea of creative connection. But for me, I think part of the reason I'm excited for today and why I wanted to do an episode like this, Rahul, is that if you remember going back to when we first started this show, I had this idea that I really wanted, I wanted this show to feel like we got some friends that are in the studio. There's a dude on the couch, just like hanging out, who's got some ideas and wants to share, and we never really did that. And I think like as we have gotten into the project, we have professionalized our project. It's still totally like a ragtag thing that you and I are doing, but we have systems in place, right? We have processes, and we have a format that we have followed for a lot of the past couple of years, where we have a guest. We have had amazing people on this show sharing all sorts of wisdom and knowledge, and I think our preparation has helped us to have really effective, meaningful interviews with people. There a lot of good information shared on this show. But I think that there are things that get lost also when when things get scripted and when things get produced and planned. And I know that we are possibly venturing after this, episode into some deeper forays into things like looking at ourselves, exploring different topics in more depth. And so I don't know, maybe this is an interesting segue into that. But I think what I'll say is that what drives my inspiration for doing show like this is that I really feel like the magic of life and the magic that we are trying to encapsulate and give voice to and provide to people on this show, it happens in the cracks of life. It happens in the nuance and in the improvisation of life. And this is an opportunity to do that. It's like just hanging out, speaking to just the common realities of, what is the friendship that Mark and I have developed? What are the different pieces that have been involved for him? And then what does that spark for you, Rahul? And then what
Yeah.
does that spark for everyone who's engaged in listening to this? To me, that is where so much of the magic of life takes shape. And so though it's kind of hard to put that into, shape that into a mold of clay and make it into something, I think we should take a shot at it because I think there's something special inside it.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say, Gabe, before we bring Mark in is, I just now came from an improv class. As you know, I've been taking improv classes, and it's exactly what you just said. A lot of it is letting go of that, like, oh, it has to be a certain way, or okay, we have to follow the formula of what a good sketch looks like, right? I mean, by nature, the format forces you out of that, and I think that's the beauty of it. And sometimes it sucks, and other times it's amazing, and everything in between. And that's the beauty of it. And so, very excited to enter that space with you and with Mark. And I think this topic is also a very rich one. Even if we go in and out of it, right? It's just something that I think a lot of people can relate to. I know one of the contexts that we'll get into, is for Mark and also for you, Gabe, being fathers, and what that does in terms of compression on time, and the complexity that you have to take on in your partnership, and how to navigate all of that, and within all of that, finding places to fill our cup, to be tuned in and connected to our creative selves, and to do that with with other people. It's a challenge I know a lot of my friends really struggle with. So very much looking forward to talking about that, and just riffing together. So with that, I'll toss it back to you to bring Mark in here.
Yeah, well, I mean, all right, I'll bring Mark in a second, but I'm curious. So you're just at improv. Was it a class or was it like a practice? Was there like a core theme or lesson that was in the improv class? Because I feel like that might be relevant here.
Yeah, it was a class. It was the last class of this particular series, and we have a grad show on Thursday. So today was like I guess it was more of a practice session. And I think what were the themes? I mean, the main theme was essentially to like keep it simple, get on the same page, like make sure you're connecting with people and getting on the same page about what you're trying to do in a scene, and then just running with it, allowing it to grow and heighten within itself.
Hmm.
And if nothing else, falling back on just being yourself within the scene, and not chasing absurdity, not chasing wow
Hmm.
factor, but allowing it to just naturally come out with little twists and turns.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think it's relevant to what we're talking about first and foremost, because Mark has a very simple bio today. You know, Mark's bio is that he is the host of the Trey Show 9 podcast, and he's a father, husband, and friend. And so, with that, Mark, I want to welcome you to the show and thank you so much for joining us today. It's good to be with
Woo,
you.
woo, 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 woo.
And yeah, I think I want to follow what you were just sharing, Rahul, about simplicity, because I can really relate to that. It's like when you're hanging out in the unknown, I know for myself, I start to get anxious, right? So the very first thing that's happening is I get anxious, and then I want to add a bunch of bells and whistles to make it interesting, like because I'm nervous about just being present in the moment. And so I guess to just start it out there, Mark, what if we just keep it super simple, man? Like, what inspires you to be a creative? We're going to get into some of these different elements of, how you and I met, your work, your role as a dad, the work that you do, but what inspires you to be a creative, and why is that so important to you in your life?
You guys brought up my philosophy, which is we need to kiss more. And that's keeping it simple, stupid. Okay. If that triggered you, the word stupid, you can say kiss, keep it simple, silly. And I kind of like that word silly. And what inspires me and what drives me is that it's fuel. Being creative is fuel to me. It's that simple. It's something that I need. It's something that it puts fuel in my tank. And so when you're talking about improv and you're talking about the unknown, it's the unknown that is the adventure to me. So in my family, we say this. We say this: the regular life, the regular life that we live is the adventure. That's the adventure right there. Like all of that, and then some, and then absolutely nothing is the adventure. And so, yeah, kiss. We need to kiss more. Keep it simple, silly.
I love that. I love that. And you use the word adventure, which is a word that always like lights me up. And I love the idea of just making everything, or not even everything, but the unknown as the adventure, but also the simple kind of motions that we go through in life, as part of the adventure and that path. And just Gabe alluded to a number of your creative arenas, and I was wondering if you could just lay that out. Just meeting you today, I'd love to hear about what are some of these creative outlets that you like to engage in, and how do they act as fuel for you?
Yeah. So one of those is actually being a father and being a husband and DJing and being a podcaster and a coach. So I said one thing; those are all a bunch of things. But being a father, being a husband, both of those things give me fuel because I didn't have that growing up, and so it's an opportunity for me to be that silly dad and be that father that comes home and is in relatively in a good mood, right? Because I love my kids and I have four of them. And so I have two girls and two boys. And so it's this like, and then going from that, then being a husband, right? Like, I don't even know what that looked like. And I still kind of am learning as I'm going along, I'm learning all these different things. And there's certain things that I learned from being a father and a husband that it's those two things are mirrors to me, so that I get this reflection, right? I get this reflection of like, hey Mark, you're in a bad attitude because this happened, and then you're trying to bring that home. No, don't do that, right? So then I had to think like, all right, well, I kind of hung up being a DJ because like I'm married now and I can't go out to the club and DJ, so now what do I do, right? But it's like, why don't I just teach my kids, teaching them how to DJ? Boom. It's so amazing because they love it. They love it. And then from that, I see the creative, this creativeness that comes from them, and by me introducing being a DJ, right? My son likes to draw, and so it's these things, and then now I see that, and that is the outlet, right? And so when things like death happens, right? We'll go to worst case scenario, right? When something like a death happens, like when my grandpa and my grandmother passed away, and then also my uncle, right? Over these last 10 to 15 years, the thing that I went to was DJing. I put my headphones on just like this. I plug into the matrix, and I have my computer, and I have my songs, and I just push play. I just hit go. And whether I'm crying, laughing into the music, I get lost in that. I get lost in that vibration. And so these are the outlets that I can say, boom, boom, tap into those, Mark. And you don't need a lot of time. You really don't need a lot of time. 5, 10 minutes. And when you get into these when I get into these modes, I'm able to forget about time. I'm able to lose myself. And so just like a heroin addict or just like an alcoholic, I'm intoxicated by that vibration of music or that vibration of connection with another human being. It's my drug, if you will. So yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about this theme of simplicity and, keep it simple, silly, and and the ordinary being the adventure. And I'm thinking about, I think it's worth sharing some backstories. Like, so Mark and I have become friends in recent months here on Maui, and I met Mark and his wife Tamara in this Kama Lama parenting class. So it was a parenting through Hawaiian values class, which is taught by a former guest, or a guest of Woven Wings Live, Kavika, David Matos. And so shout out to Kavika. And through this class, we ended up just connecting, and one thing led to another. We ended up hanging out. And for folks who've been listening to the show, or who follow our YouTube channel and see kind of some of the personal videos I make, you might know that right now is a little bit of a difficult time in my life. I'm going through a divorce. And so amidst that, it's like I'm going through a divorce in a state, in a place that I moved to a few years ago, and during COVID, while going through a difficult relationship, right? And so it hasn't been a place where I've had tons and tons of connections, especially compared to where you are, Rahul, back in the Bay Area, where it's like my whole huge home community is there. But life has taken me on this different path, and I'm here on Maui. And so in that kind of wasteland, so to speak, of kind of solitude and isolation, some simple things like just getting together with Mark and Tamara and having Satori, my son, hit it off with Mark and Tamara's kids, and just having them interact while we sit around. And of course we're connecting, but like, I don't know, Mark, like a lot of days we don't even talk about that much. I mean, of course we get into talking all sorts of things, but like sometimes we're just sitting there like drinking a LaCroix,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
sitting and the
And those
kids
are
are
the
running
best things.
around.
Yeah.
But those are the best things, right? It's just that simple moment of, like you said, Mark, kind of getting filled up and being brought alive from the presence of another human being. And then, I mean, that's great, but I do think, then some of the things you're talking to, the creative spark that you have bubbling under the surface and that comes out into these different activities, it just ends up becoming a source of joy, a source of interaction that suddenly breathes life into that kind of desolate landscape. There's, I probably haven't shared this to you directly, Mark, but there's been just so many times where, we'll often be hanging out at Mark and Tamara's because well, they got a lot of kids, and I only have one, so it's it's a lot easier to go over there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but uh, but where I leave there, and I'm like, wow, thank God, like I just feel so filled up, from not because we came up with some amazing idea or there was some fantastic adventure or activity, right? Like you were talking about, Rahul. It's like it's really just because like there was a human connection, and there was this spark of possibility, and through that, then the wheels in my life are turning more. Like my heart is breathing more. My mind is coming up with different ideas, and getting things moving. And so I guess I just want to name all of that because I feel like we so often are looking for the next big thing. We're trying to get our fix through this accomplishment or this task or, this next benchmark in our life. And I just think it's so valuable and important to bring it back to the the simple stuff, the baseline of who are you spending your time with? Rahul, you mentioned to me a long time ago this in passing, one of these psychology frameworks of like you are kind of the mix of your five closest friends, right? Like who you are is a reflection of the five people, your five closest friends, or maybe just the five people you spend the most time around, right? And if we really break it down to that, I think it puts us in touch with something simple that is not just valuable in contrast to something fancy or one exciting, but it's really like there's something specific that we get to access when we keep it simple, that you can't access actually, however exciting and exhilarating some of these thrills might be that we seek. you there's something different that comes from the ordinary, something really beautiful and potent and powerful. And so I have no question in any of that, but I just put that out to both of you to riff on, or if you have any perspective or thoughts on that, pushback, anything.
I do actually, so one day Gabe comes over, right? And this is just an example of that connection, right? That spontaneous connection. And we had another friend come over as well. And we had scheduled something more like we're gonna make some beats and stuff like that, and we're gonna use like this electronic stuff and whatever, right? But we said, hey, can we go acoustic tonight? Can we go just tribal on the situation and make some music that way? And Gabe showed up, guitar in hand, boom, and he just started playing, right? Not guitar, the ukulele, and just literally like put all his stuff down and just started. And then I got my cajon and I just started drumming, right? And there was a time where I thought, well, if I thought about drumming on the cajon, which I don't have any, I don't have like a drumming background. I DJ, so I kind of know like 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, that simple beat, right? But it's this idea of just I don't. It's a new instrument for me. It's brand new, but what it's doing is it's allowing me to just play and be free and be in that present moment. Be in that present moment to say, hey, look, here's an instrument, right? And the way I do one thing is the way I do all things. And so I have an instrument here that is brand. It's actually right here. That's why I'm pointing this way. And I don't know much about it, but because I don't know much about it, I'm able to explore it right then and there. And then when I have this person who is playing the guitar, now I'm like, oh, okay, let me get to this rhythm here. And let me just run with it. And dude, it was like an hour to 2 hours, maybe. I don't know, maybe even 3 hours. We played and we played and we played. And at some point in time, we were like, you know what? We never record. We never hit record. And so I was like, oh, but it was fun. And the other guy that was with us, he said, I needed that. I just really needed that because I'm at a place in my life at this particular day where I was just kind of down, I just was like, And if people don't motivate me, I'll just sit there and do nothing. And so to know that, like, that vibration and that stepping out of my comfort zone, stepping out of our comfort zone, stepping out into the unknown actually benefits us. And so it's one of the things that I teach. If I'm coaching, it's like some guy might be like, well, this, I'm trying to be, I'm trying to work out, I'm trying to muscle this, or rah, 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 I'm trying to do all these things. And I go, right there, stop all that. Stop it. Stop it. Fuck it. Give up. And they're just like, wait, give up? Like, why? Why would I do that? Like, if I give up, then it's like everything will fall apart. I'm all, do you know if that's absolutely true? Have you tried it? Try it. Will it actually fall apart? Do you know that it's going to fall apart? We don't know if it's going to fall apart, And for the improv, I watched this movie. My wife put it on. I don't even know what it was. I wasn't paying attention. I was actually working, and then she put it on, and then I was just like, what? It seemed kind of interesting. But there was a part in the movie where there was this improv, and the dad goes up to do the improv, and his role is to play a husband, and his wife comes along, and he starts talking about his actual marriage and how sad and how broken he is. And then everyone's laughing and this and that. They're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is so amazing, because it's like his acting is tremendous. I can't believe that he's just feeling the vibe here. And nobody really knew that it was actually true. And the son is like, wait, hold on. You're talking about my mom? You wait. And then he mentioned a divorce. And he's like, wait, you're divorcing mom? What? And everyone's still kind of cheering along. But from that spontaneity, from that, they got a better relationship in that particular movie. I think it's called Dads or something like that. I don't know. It's Will Ferrell's in it. Out of the chaos grew this amazing new relationship, right? It was rough, and it went like kind of like downhill, and then it went uphill. But it's only because the unknown happened, right? I played the cajon, and we made, dude, that song that we did the last song, we don't even know what it was, but it was amazing. It was truly amazing. Like the lyrics and the chords, and it was amazing. And it was healing to the soul. And so I think that spontaneity and that creativeness, I think we're all creatives too. I believe that we're all creatives. Oh yeah, but I code. That's, are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now? That's creative. But I'm a mom and I homeschool. Cool. Yeah, but I'm a psychologist. I'm a psychiatrist, a psychiatrist, there's all these different things. And it's like, dude, that's creative. I don't do anything. I don't have a talent. I don't have this. I don't have that. What do you have? What can you do? So
I love this. I mean, I'm feeling this like upswelling of energy just listening to both of you talk. And what I'll tell you, Mark, is, having talked to Gabe a couple days after you all had your jam session, Gabe was glowing about it, and he was like, oh, and similar to what I think your third musketeer said, I think what I got from you, Gabe, is you were like, yeah, I needed that, and our last podcast conversation was called, I think, Healing Through Our Voice. And really, if we were to generalize, what that theme was about, right? Like in that particular instance, we were following our voices without knowing where it would go and letting the voice be the guide into the unknown, right? And here, what I'm hearing is a broader application of that idea, right? That there is something to be said just to enter that unknown and allow that to be the kind of the designer of the adventure, right? And the other piece that I heard in the couple of examples that you shared is, I think, the safety that can come, or the feeling of security that can come from entering into the unknown in community. I think that music example is very very resonant for me. So I grew up playing this instrument called the tabla, and tabla is a classical Indian instrument that's really at its root is meant to be a like jazz like improvisational instrument. And the way that I learned it, I mean, the way, when you learn it early on and you're gaining your chops, you're learning the notes, you're learning the set kind of beats, and you have your 16 count, your 7 count, your 6 count, and you're just working through all those. And for me, it was always this edge to exit that structure, right? To exit the kind of the preset notes that I knew. And even to a point where I think I got good enough to be able to take some of those chances, but I never quite, in that context, never quite got over that edge. And just hearing you talk about it, and I love what you said, Mark, is like you were put in a situation where by not having planned it, by not having thought about it in advance, it puts you just in a much more likely position. Like, all right, I just have to run with it now. And that's actually the reason I started doing improv, was to channel that exact quality. And I think there's just something so beautiful when you can surrender, and I think the theme for me over the last 6 or 7 months in life more generally has been around letting go, right? And this application in improv or whatever, that's a fun lower stakes application of that, but I think it's something that really applies across all the different modalities of life, right? And kind of the image that I was thinking of as you were talking about a lot of this is, if you all have seen Soul, right?
Mm,
The main character in Soul is a pianist, right? And the kind of the like peak scene for me was when he gets lost in the music, right? And I know music is the kind of the place that we keep coming back to, but really the theme of it was him finding flow, right? And everything we're talking about is, I feel like, is it's flow, right? It's presence, it's comfort in the discomfort and the joy and the sadness and the anything that comes with being right here, right now. And, in a meta sense, I'm glad, Gabe, that we're approaching this episode this way, right? Because it's the theme here, right? It's we're in our creative process without being in a planned creative process as we often might be. And I think there's just a
100%.
lot of richness here. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I wish I could say that I sprung this on you intentionally. Like I was like, okay, I know that Rahul needs this, so I'm going to hide it. I'm going to conceal it from him, and then, bam, but on some level, there's maybe some element of that. Again, not no intentionality behind it, but that there is this like, what are we talking about this show? Vibrant living, wisdom and tools for vibrant living. And if I'm noticing my own affect right now as I'm speaking, like I can feel the vibrancy popping through. I don't know if it feels that way to you as a listener, and if it doesn't, I apologize. But for myself, I can feel that coming through, and it has to do with that improvisational nature, right? Because it's like there's an imperative. If I don't have like a set of questions here and like a format that's like all set up to kind of catch me if I'm not present, if I'm like, oh, okay, all right, well, the guest said this, so the next question is, it's like I am required to be alive, right? To be present, to be very, very present. And through that, like, I don't know, I hope it's a better listening experience for folks who are listening to us. But even before that, I can say as a creative act, it is more enlivening to me. And as an example of this, you're referencing, Rahul, like talking to me after, I had this jam session with Mark and Brandon, our unnamed third musketeer. I'll just name him here. Brandon, what's up, man? But, you know, a couple days after, and feeling that like inspiration, well, something I've noticed, about 4 months ago now, we went live with putting our podcast on YouTube. And alongside that, I started creating a lot more content on YouTube that's related with my coaching business, the stuff that I help folks out with on a daily basis. I started putting videos out there. And, it has been such a process of encountering my own stuck places and places of contraction and self-judgment and control. And when I started it, imagine I was like, oh, it's gonna be so easy. Like I love doing this sort of thing, right? But once I was doing it and seeing myself speak and then like seeing the response as a result, like, I had all these different judgments and self-criticisms come up. And what I've noticed as I've iterated on that and done that more and more, doing this jam session, like it's unlocked a sense of ease and naturalness in making these videos and content for people, where it's just like, well, here it is, oh, here's an idea. I can create that. And like, yeah, could it be better? Yeah, absolutely. Can I keep working on that over time? Yeah. But is it valuable to make it and put it out there and then learn through that and then do it again? It's like that, a lot of developing mastery is just the repetitions, actually getting unhooked from our judgments, our criticisms, to be able to actually get into the practice of it. And I think that, what we've ended up kind of starting to dance around here on our show today, I don't know what you think, Rahul, but I'm like feeling all these connections, actually going back to the episode we did with Rosie Greenberg about the inner critic. And I'm thinking about the jam session that Mark and I had the other night. And, yeah, it turned out all wonderfully and we ended up jamming. It was like really magical. But I remember like before, like in the lead up to it, I was kind of like disappointed and frustrated that I was like, oh man, it's like, it's hard to get us together. And then like, we're not going to like, we didn't bring like the gear, like the electronic stuff that we wanted to make this beat. And then we're not going to record it. And we're just going to sit around and like be like acoustic. Like, what is that? Like I had all these like ideas about it, like, and that's me wanting to control the process, wanting to control the situation and having these judgments and criticisms about what's unfolding rather than trusting and opening to what's unfolding into like the possibilities that are there. And I just think like this is so crucial because flow is everything. When you're in a creative flow state, it's like you were saying, Mark, things become timeless. You don't need like, what other needs are there? Of course, you're going to have to eat and you're going to have to figure out how to pay for that food and you're going to have to sleep somewhere. Right. So we have these constraints that come in, but what is greater than the experience of feeling liberated, to be yourself in a creative process, and whatever unfolds that for you, it's kind of like screw the rest, like what benefit is all that other stuff that's getting in the way of that experience of being able to kind of let go and let flow.
Ooh, let go and let flow. Hold on a second. Let go and let flow. See? I have this saying that I have when I leave the house. I have this, and that's going to be another saying that I have with my boys. They're usually up, right? The boys are up, eating breakfast, and starting their day because they want to go outside and play. And so I go, be the best. So the saying is this. I'll tell you the saying, and then I'll tell you the version I give to my children. The saying is, be the best and fuck the rest. So that is like in my head constantly. Just go do and forget everything else. And so when I leave the house, I say, I tell my boys, be the best. And they go, forget the rest. And what that teaching around that is, hey, just have fun. Just be the best at building blocks today. Right? Because they be homeschool and they get frustrated because they can't read this sentence or whatever. Hey, it's all good. It's all good. Eventually you're gonna get it. Right? You're going to get it. It's okay. Like, don't worry about it. Literally. Seriously, don't worry about it. Just be the best. If you can say the cat in the hat and that's all you can say, or if you can just say the cat and you can't get your H's, it's all good. We'll figure it out. We'll figure that out. And that flow state is so important because it's, I was teaching Gabe, at another time I was teaching Gabe how to DJ, and just not even necessarily how to DJ because he's done it before, but how to use the software that I have, Serato, and just how to use that the controller, right? And then just how that process is. But I don't go technical like this is how I DJ. I might show him like this is how I do it, and you don't want to like you have a chorus, you have a verse. Sometimes you have a chorus first, or you'll have that verse and then you'll have a bridge and then you'll have the chorus. Well, you want to end on the chorus, not the verse, because the verse is like, the goodness of that, and you can kind of lead out of that chorus into another song. But at the same time, you don't have to do it that way. That's just the way that I was taught, and that's just it's kind of like the way of music. And so yes, it does sound better, but then there are some things that just work, and you're in that verse, right? You're in it, and then bop, it's called a cut. And so DJs learned how to cut. And so you take an aspect of a song and you literally cut it in half. And then you make that other verse kind of continuously go, has a different beat. And so with that teaching, what that does is it opens up my creativeness and helps me flow because I have to now teach that, right? And so same thing with my kids and reading, right? When we're reading, it might be like the cat in the hat and dad, this is boring. This is so boring. And I'm like, hey, let's dance. Let's listen to a song, right? You want to draw something? You want to draw a hat? Like, what would a hat look like to you if you drew a hat? Who's wearing the hat? How does a hat look? Is it purple? Is it stick figure? Is it polka dot? Is it stripe? And being able to be creative. And so that's us saying, okay, well, you didn't get it this way. And plus I know my kids and I know myself. And if my oldest son, who is 7, and my youngest son is 5, my oldest son is more like his mom, where he's like, no, dad, this is structure. And we have, at this time we eat lunch, and then we eat snack, and then we do this and we do that. My youngest son is like, he's like, whatever, who gives a shit? Let's just go. He's running around half clothed. You know what I mean? And my wife's like, ah! And it's like, let's play, let's dance, and it's this thing where it is a dance. It is a dance. I think life is a dance, and it's just that simple. There's really nothing more to it for me in my outlook. And I come with an energy that my whole gimmick, if you will, right, is encouragement. I believe that if there is a supreme being, this supreme being said, Mark, I want you to be an encouragement to people, and I want you to get them out of their comfort zone. And I said, okay, I will do that. I don't know how to do that, though. He goes, trust me, I will make you silly and weird, and they will be acceptance of that, and they will do what you say to do. And it's like, that's what I do with my kids. You know what I mean? Like, I teach math this way. It's, my kids are like, Dad, you can't teach math this way. I go, why not? Why can't we dance? Why can't we rap? Why can't we draw it? You know what I mean? Like, whatever works to make you understand, right? So, yeah, that flow state. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, there's flow state and then all these other cool tidbits that you just added to this whole picture. I think the first one is the point you were making around do your best and forget the rest, right? That there's an element of faith, I think, inherent to looking at it that way. It's something that I've been practicing and trying to learn myself, because I've been doing work in these new contexts, and like sometimes I don't fully know what to do, and I'm learning, I'm picking things up, I'm reading, I'm asking questions, But then there's this feeling that can sometimes feel like dread, or anxiety, kind of like what you were talking about, Gabe, right? Where it's like in the unknown, it can sometimes, I notice myself wanting to grasp at process or at effort, and those things have their place. It's not to say that we discard them altogether, but I think what you said, Mark, right? It's enter the process, do your best, and then trust that over time something will emerge. And I, anytime I'm able to step out of that anxious feeling, there's so much evidence that supports that approach, right? So much evidence in my own life, right? It doesn't even have to be anything out there. It's like I can just think back to so many times where I did just that, either because I chose to or because invariably that is what ends up happening, right? You can only do your best and then let time run its course, and the process run its course, and inevitably something or the other emerges, right? And I think that's so powerful. And then the other piece that you added, I think, is is really how to make that faith based approach work, or make it feel great or fun, which is finding that inherent joy and adventure. Keep coming back to that word adventure in whatever process we're in, right? And actually today that came up in improv class too. Gabe, you were asking about lessons or themes. This is the last class before our show. Everyone's like, all right, we got the show coming up. And our instructor was just like, remember also that like there are going to be times when you are just crashing and burning. And the best thing you can do is to just somehow like have fun with that. It's like you're going to feel frustrated. You might feel shame or guilt or whatever. But if you can start to just have a little bit of fun with it, one, it'll inherently change the like feeling of whatever is happening as well, not for only for yourself, but how it's being experienced by anybody on the outside. But two, also from that place, the process of climbing out of whatever ditch you think you're in is just going to be that much better, that much more enjoyable, and suddenly it's not going to feel like this drag or this daunting thing that you're having to overcome, but just something that you're doing, something that you're flowing with. And I was just noting that, right, that this idea that there's an inherent creativity that can be accessed in anything that you're doing. And I think that's such a like powerful concept if we can actually channel it and operate from that place. um yeah, I just think it can really change a lot of the experience of even going through drudgery, of going through challenge, adversity, all of the above.
Yeah, that crashing and burning, Rahul, and then like the having fun with it. I feel like that's like, when you get to like creative genius or you see some like comic geniuses, right? Like it's actually precisely because of that like the crashing and burning becomes brilliant unto itself, like through that having fun, through laughing about it, through sticking with the trust, that, oh yeah, like it looks like, to my inner critic, to shout out Rosie, it looks like I'm crashing and burning, and I am, but also this is just the creative process that's unfolding, right? Like the creative process involves like things falling apart and destruction. And so if I can laugh about it and enjoy it, then some sort of thread is going to somehow reveal itself amidst this, awfulness, and then something new will get birthed out of it, right? Like that is actually like that I couldn't like my critic, my controlling part couldn't see that thread, right? And it wouldn't be able to create a facsimile or a stand-in for that thread, because nothing beats the genuine experience of falling apart and crashing and burning, and then, you know like a phoenix, rising, being renewed, getting that to come through.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is something that I have been exposed to my whole life. I was just talking to my wife about this, where I had the most treacherous uh, stuttering problems that one could have in actually fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. I kind of killed it in ninth grade because I said, well, I want to talk to girls and I don't want to stutter. And I remember I remember I was in, I think, was I in eighth grade? Yes, I was in the eighth grade or seventh grade. And there was this girl, Emily, who I wanted to talk to. She was a ballet dancer. And I was like, that's so hot. That's so amazing. And I couldn't even get out of my mouth to ask her out. It never, it was like, will. And I'm just like, the bell rang and everything. And she's like, I have to go. And I was like, wait, stop right there. Don't move. And she's like, what? I'm a, will you go out with me? It was a movie picture. I'm like yelling it.
Yeah, I was
Everyone heard. Everyone was listening to me. And she's running down the hall. And I'm just like, well, will you? And she's like, yes. And she runs off. And I'm just like, yeah. I turned around. I'm like, yes. And I went to class, and I don't remember if I even paid attention to the next class. I was just like, she said yes, you know? And it's just thing where it's like, what if I was confined to to my stuttering problem and that I thought I had, and to get out of that took faith. It took me, and I'm sure others that have that same issue. My son has it, and well, he had it and he's kind of getting out of it. And like, what did I need to get that out of just not being that way, And it took faith. It took the understanding and saying, okay, I don't see, it doesn't make any sense to me right now. And I just know that I want something. I want to be the best speaker that ever lived. When I was growing up, I had this weird, crazy dream. But I also had the critic saying, you can't do that because you don't know how to speak. You cannot formulate a sentence. It may be formulated in your head, but you can't display that outwardly. So no one is going to listen to you. And then everyone's still going to make fun of you. And you're going to have this for the rest of your life. And I just made a decision, I said, no, I'm not. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. But I use that faith, and I use I use Bible study, to get out of that, because like they were like, come to Bible study and then you'll be saved or whatever when I was younger. And in the ninth grade, I came to Bible study, and I only went to Bible study because I had to read in public. I had to read a verse, and I would literally count the people. They said, okay, each person's going to take a verse. And I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so then they're going to read this one. This person's going to read this. And then, okay, here's what I'm going to read. And I wouldn't hear anything anyone else was saying, but I would practice my verse or whatever I had to read. And I go, okay, this word, I know this word. I know that word. I know this word. Okay, will I be able to pronounce that word when it comes out? Shoot, I don't know if I can pronounce that. I'm going to stutter. I know I'm going to stutter. Shoot. And then I'm like, I'm not a really good reader. This is gonna wreck. I'm gonna be. This is gonna. There's girls here. This one looks pretty. That one, maybe my future wife. You know what I mean? I have no idea. This and that. And I'm just like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna ask a ton of questions. That's all. I did. This what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna ask questions. So I would read it, and I would read up until the point where I didn't know the word, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stutter. And then I would go, does anybody know what this word is? And they would be like, oh, this word is, discover. And I'm like, okay, so discover. Okay, so God discovered da 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 da. And then if I didn't know the word, I'd be like, how about this word? And I just created this world around me to help me stop stuttering. And I would bring other people in to go, what do you think of this word? How would you pronounce this word? I do it all the time. I do it with names. Like, how do you pronounce your name? How would you pronounce this? How do you say this? Oh, okay, cool. And I'm 47 years old, and to this day, I will do that. And that's me being creative because I have to go outside of myself. I have to have the faith to go outside of myself and say, this is your reality. How are you going to shape that? Right? The plane is going down. How are you going to land this plane and save yourself and everybody else in the plane? You figure it out. I think you figure it out when it's that crash and burn, scenario, because it's like my pride. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, I don't want to be hurt and embarrassed.
Yeah, I mean, I really, I was noting the creativity in your problem solving, if we want to call it that, right? Like that your skill building, your confidence building in the scenario you just painted out. And it's very interesting because I'm like, I don't know that everyone would approach that situation with that level of creativity. It felt inspired, and you used the example of like one the massive dream of wanting to become a great orator, or maybe the less massive but more immediate thing of like, hey, I want to go talk to girls, and everything in between, and
Yeah.
and that maybe created that spark or that inspiration. And maybe the psychoanalysis is that the weight and the pressure of the dream is also what created the stutter. I don't know, like that
Right.
sometimes that pressure, I know that's something that's shown up in my life where, and I, I don't know if you all watch basketball, but like I think of Kobe as a Lakers fan growing up, like Kobe in game 7 of the 2010 finals against the Celtics, you could tell that he wanted it so badly, and he had a terrible game. It was like, and it was one of those things where I was like, oh, he's just like put so much pressure on this outcome. And it's like, it's, negative probably in that way. But then you take a longer view on it, right? And it's like, okay, maybe that pressure is part of the inspiration. And then there's part practice, like what you did, you were very creative in the way that you practiced, which I think is really cool. I mean, it's not just about getting the reps sometimes, but about getting the reps in creative ways and modifying your approach so that you're actually pushing the envelope. And then, no matter how much you practice, I think there's that moment or set of moments where what you said, Mark, right, where you just have to take a leap and you have to have faith and you just have to try something that's inherently going to feel very uncomfortable because you don't know what's going to happen. And in that space, it sounds like is where you found that creativity, right? Oh, let me ask a question instead of hitting the stutter, right? Or let me just, overcome this barrier and then that barrier and then that barrier. And that's how we learn, that's how we grow. And I think coming back to our theme, right, that's how we fill our cup, even when we're doing something that might on the surface initially be draining our cup because it's hard, because it's uncomfortable, because we don't know where it's going to go. And that can be draining if we're not able to access that creativity. And at best case, the way you were describing how you teach, that joy, that silliness, that fun, and all of that, I think makes for a great recipe.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes me think about. I've been thinking for like about half an hour or something now about fear, and we talked about control. We talked about like these different elements that kind of take us out of that flow. But I've really been zeroing on this sense of fear, and I can feel it like creep in different moments, like while we're making this episode, because it's an improv, right? Where I'm just like, wait, like where is this going? Like the voice of fear is there, and it's like, wait, what's happening right now? Do I need to jump in and save this thing? Or do I need to fix it somehow? And it's interesting to like track it in my body and what it feels like, or I feel like I'm kind of like sensing the conversation because it's like associated with like a drop in energy. Like if I feel the energy kind of dropping in any way, then I start getting scared. I start getting concerned of like what's happening. And it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like a stand-in for like life and death. You know, it's like if I'm there with like my child, and then my child's like energy starts dropping, then I'm like, wait, what's happening? You know, like get back up, have fun. You know, but similarly to a child, right? It's like, well, any good parent knows, you know, like everyone goes in cycles, right? So when the energy drops, that means it's like it's time to like switch it up. It's time to try a different strategy, like you shared in your story, Mark, about, oh, I'm gonna ask a question, I'm gonna get creative here, or maybe it's time to rest, it's time to sleep, and that kind of the full cycle is all welcome. It's all working itself out, and we're not guaranteed or promised any kind of outcome like from that. It doesn't mean that the child's going to become a millionaire or a celebrity, and it doesn't mean that everyone will be in good health, you know, or X, Y, and Z. But I think when you, I guess the word that just popped into my head is unconditional. You know, that came up in a class I was teaching today. We were talking about love at the rehab center where I teach, and someone shared about love being unconditional. And I think whether it's that faith that we're talking about or trust, it's the ability, if we think about being creative and improving and being able to like harness this power of what we're talking about today, it's like being able to like trust unconditionally that whatever, like I might feel uncomfortable, I might get scared, I might want to control, I might try to control, but like through all of that, there is some sort of creative process that's bigger than me that is unfolding. And if I open myself up to it, then I can let go. Right. And then like the golden thread out of the crash and burn I start to become aware of it. Whereas before I thought there was a crisis happening, so I had to fix it. You know, I had to go solve it. So I'm curious what both of you guys think about that, because like, I mean, I'm here on my soapbox, like talking about it, like I'm some expert about it, which I'm not. What I'm really describing is that I'm feeling that like all the time. Like I'm feeling that at our jam session the other night, Mark, right? And that threatens to derail it. If I pick it up in those moments, then I'm like, I play like I block, right? Isn't that a term in improv, Rahul? You know, it's like I block the energy from flowing, and then I'm like, oh, it's supposed to be like this, or I have a different idea of what it's supposed to be other than as it is. And then life starts to suck more, you know. So I feel that fear all the time. And I don't know, I'm curious if you guys, I don't know, have any tips about that or any ideas, or if you experience that too. Is that just me, or is that something that maybe we
All the
all
time, bro.
experience?
All the time. Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna actually ask the question you asked, Gabe. I was like, how do you all deal with it? Because I've been freaking dealing with it all the time, and I don't know that I
Right?
figured
It's
it
like
out yet.
I just feel like that's like incessant. Like, and that's my hypothesis is like, if you're listening to this, like, and you're in a public place, just look around at the people around you. I'll bet like they're all thinking that, like right now.
Yeah.
You know, like we're
Yes.
all going around like freaked out about this stuff all the time. And it's a pandemic. Like it's a crisis. Like because it's something simple. It's like baked into our wiring, but like it's depriving us of a joyful experience of life. It's depriving us of a creative, connective experience of life. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's depriving me of that, like a significant percentage of my time. And it sounds like both of you have that experience too.
Yeah. And I go right back to the kiss. I go right back to keeping it simple. And then I go right back to when we had a home birth for Micaiah, my 7-year-old, and we had the doula, and then we had the midwife, and then we had someone else was there, and she comes over before the birth, and she's from Santa Cruz, and she walks in, right, and she's just like, immediately she's like this. And I'm just like, oh man, I'm not with this right now. I don't know what's gonna happen right now. Are we gonna have
For
some
folks listening
seance?
to this on audio, yeah, exactly. Mark's describing it. It's seance movements with the hands,
It's
with the arms.
she's just moving around like really flowy, right? And I'm just like, okay, what's going to happen here? And she's like, dance. It's in the dance. And she says something. She says this. She says, it saved my marriage. Dance saved my marriage. And it does something to you when you dance and when you play. And I've heard that said before, is what do you do when that fear arises? What do you do when those challenges come? What do you do when you're just like petrified, right? Because every time I'm creative, if I'm gonna DJ, I'll go remind me what I just said. I'm gonna tell a story. I'm jumping. Here we go with the fun spider web jumping all over the place here. So fear. I had some of the greatest opportunities of my life being able to experience with some of the most amazing people. And one of those times was me DJing at the Warfield in San Francisco, which is like, to me, epic, 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 epic. And I was nervous making the set. I was nervous carrying my equipment into the venue. I was sweating. I almost dropped my case that I was carrying because I was so sweaty and my legs were shaking. And this is nobody's in the arena. No one's, I'm just setting up my equipment. And I'm just like, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. I'm not going to be able to do this. There's no way, because they're all going to laugh at me. No one's going to listen. No one's going to care. And I'm just like, what am I doing? And like, it was just this nagging like critic in the back of my mind going, you're not good enough. You're gonna mess up. And when you mess up on your mix, someone's gonna laugh at you. They're not gonna like it. And guys, I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. I get to the venue and I set everything up, and then we go out and we do this ministry, and we're in San Francisco, and we're going out in the Tenderloin doing ministry and feeding people and cutting people's hairs and washing feet and clothing people, and we're doing all this stuff, and it's just huge, right? And the end of it was this massive party, me DJing this party for everybody at the Warfield in San Francisco, which was supposed to be super epic. The Warfield, hello, like if you're not the Warfield is where like everyone in rock and roll has played there. Everybody has played there. And I'm like, this is it. This is my peak right here. And I walk out, and before I walk out, my friend is backstage with me, and he is gassing me up. He's just like, you're the best, you're this, you're that, and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I'm like, whoo. And he's like, dude, snap out of it, bro. And he's like hitting me on the back. He's like slapped me on the face. And he like, you want a rock star? And he's like, I'm like, yeah, rock star, and I get out there and it just turned off. It just turned off. Like all the fear just went gone. Bye-bye. And I was so in my element. I was like, yeah. And I was dancing and like just looking at the crowd. There was all these people here, and it was so loud. And I'm just like, I just took it all in. I took it all in, and I just relished, and I just basked. I just bathed in that experience, because I knew that I didn't know, but I didn't know if I was coming back there. I didn't know if I was ever going to have this chance. So why not just be the best and forget the rest? And just to see my family out there, all my kids, and then my friend, he has 7 kids. Okay. And so they're all out there, right? And just cheering for me. And I'm just like bawling afterwards. I'm like, just ridiculous, like baby boohoo crying, because it's like, my family and my friends, they were the only ones that, and then the speakers and everybody else that was in the project, they were all congratulating me. And it was amazing. And then afterwards, who I thought nobody was paying attention, everyone's just all in their own world and just doing whatever, dancing and this and that. So many people came up to me and was like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And like, it was amazing. Right. And you have the fear, and I believe that particular fear is there because it makes you and allows you to just be more present. I know it's backwards, but it's this false evidence appearing real. And it's this idea that that fear didn't stop me from doing what I came out to do, what I set out to do. It didn't stop me. It launched me into this. I practiced my set, mind you. I never practice sets. Never, ever, ever, ever. But this one, I mean, I had it down to the science. I had cue points. I had notes because I was not going to mess up, and it did. There was no variance. There was no variables. I stuck to the script. But I made sure that I had that script to be super duper fun when I was making it. And I know that kind of goes against what you guys are doing at this episode because we're just kind of just rolling with the punches, but it works. It works because there is this fear is not a bad thing. Fear is not a bad thing. And it's coming to this edge that I had to get to. I forgot the other story, but I'm going to tell another story right now. Speaking about edges.
I was going to remind you. I was like, oh, yeah. You have another story to tell, Mark.
Yeah.
And then my fear voice was coming in. I was like, how many stories are we going to tell? Like, how big is this spider web?
Yeah. This is it. This is the last one. But I want to speak about the edge that someone had mentioned. I don't know if it was, I don't know who it was. It was me or whatever. The edge, I wrote it down here. The edge is, I take it to the American River. The American River has a series of rock jumps. American River is in California, towards Lake Tahoe. It's before you get to Lake Tahoe. The town is actually called Kybers, and there's a few rock jumps there. I took my family there, and there's one rock. You got to just picture this. So the rock, if you're standing on the rock, and imagine in front of you, there's the American River, right? The snow, icy cold water, right, is in front of you. It's crisp. It's moving fast. It's loud. And this particular area where I was going to jump was going to be in a pool. On the rock where I was, I actually couldn't see the river. So when I got up there, I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because I can't see. Because it looked like if I were to jump, it looked like I would jump right onto a rock. And the guy who was leading me, he says this, he goes, no. This is not where you're jumping from. You have to walk down this. Imagine this hill is like, you can't really see, but it's round. It's a ball. Okay. Imagine a ball. And if you're on the top of the ball, you're all good. If you walk a few steps further, you feel like you're going to slip and slide down. That's exactly how I felt. So my fear kicked in, and I stood on that rock for 35 minutes. All the while, my kids are like, go, daddy, go, jump. And I'm just like, hell no, I'm not jumping, right? And you had to walk out. And then when you walked out to the bend of a ball, imagine yourself on a bend of a ball, you look out, and then it goes out. So it curves and then it goes out. So you have to jump out far enough to not hit the rock that's at the bottom of that particular rock into the water. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm following you.
You're on a ball, right? And so you have to almost get out to the bend and then run and then jump. And then you have to go out, miss the rock that's in the water. And so that's what I did. And he goes, the guy that was leading me, he goes, you can't have fear when you do this. You can have fear when you're not jumping, but when you jump, you have to fully commit. You have to commit, because if you pull back, what's going to happen is you're going to hit either your tailbone or your head on the rock that you're standing on. Then you're going to roll down and hit another rock that's 10 feet below you. So in order to not do all that, you have to commit. You have to fully jump. And that's what I did. I finally jumped, and it was amazing. The water is ice cold. And I remember that, and that helps me with everything that I do. I'm getting ready to start start with this paddle group here on Maui, and I'm nervous, and it's like, why? Because I don't want to let anybody down. It's a race, and then there's people working. They're better than me, and it's like I don't want to let them down. And so I want to make sure that I can keep going, because I've done it before, and it's pretty strenuous, But I'm just gonna go there and have fun, just dance with it, just have fun, and be in
Yeah,
community.
I'm picturing Mark the scene from Dark Knight Rises where he has to get out of the pit, and the key to getting out of the pit is to not have the rope, right? And it's like, oh, you have to commit. You have to commit
Yeah,
fully, and just
yeah,
just listening to your two stories, right? I think and answering that question that you led with, which is what do you do when that fear comes in, you start to feel that, the somatic physiological experience of tensing up of your, you were mentioning sweat, your legs are shaking, right? And those are familiar, right? Those are familiar feelings. And what I heard in what you said is is kind of going back to a theme we were talking about earlier. At some point, you commit and you take that leap of faith, right? And you know and trust that you'll be okay on the other side, right? And I think that's um, and then within all that, right, is all the creativity that we were talking about before, the connection, the support of people guiding us sometimes through those moments or not. Sometimes we're not connected and we have to just lean on our own creativity or connection with a larger spiritual being of or energy of some kind. And um, yeah, I think that's a just a powerful message to start to wrap up on as we approach close. But what I'll say before passing to you, Gabe, is just this has been a lot of fun. It's past midnight now here, and I'm feeling wired. So
Yeah.
this is great. So thank you, Mark, for being a part of this, for making this happen, and yeah, for everything.
Well, I would, yeah. So I'm glad we passed midnight because my original like improv title for this episode was the Late Night Studio with Mark Augustine. So we officially did that, and midnight on Maui. Everyone said Maui midnight is 9 p.m. So we passed that mark over here too. So it's late. It's officially late, and yeah. One thing I wanted to kind of put out to you, Rahul, was what is your takeaway? So I'm just kind of curious, like, what is kind of, I don't know, like alive for you as you hear all of this and we kind of just like process all of it. I'm curious because I feel like I know you through this project and otherwise, over this while. And I'm like, I'm interested in it for you. And I can share for myself, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does this spark for you?
So I think what I'll say, I mean, first, just as a very quick preamble to the answer, Mark, one thing Gabe and I often talk about with this project is that these conversations in and of themselves are a spiritual practice for us, right? And a lot of it is just the conversations are a medium to either learn something new or to come back to something that we've known, and the reminder, the bringing it to life in dialogue in this conversation and this process of weaving together. And so the reason I mention all that is I think the part that jumps out to me the most is just a reminder of something that I hold to be very important. And at sometimes I feel like I very easily embody this quality, and other times I lose sight of it. And today was just a reminder. And it's that idea of like finding adventure in the process, in the mundane, in the challenges. And within that, right, through that, the creativity, the expansiveness, the confidence, the ability to coexist with that fear, to jump past the fear, all of that to me flows from there, right? If and it's all obviously connected, but if we were to pick a starting point, I'm like, to me, it's somewhere in that early part of when we're feeling out of sorts or of anything, or feeling our cup is being drained, right? It's like, how do we fill it? And it's that, to me, it's that, it's like, hey, how do we make this a game? How do we make this fun? How do we find adventure even in the most challenging
Hmm.
circumstances? And then
Hmm.
everything just follows.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Well said. And yeah, I mean, if I follow up and chime in on it, well, first of all, like a second ago, like I like just pulled up my like my battery, and I was like, the computer was like at 1% battery, and I was like, suddenly, like while I was in the middle of asking you that question, so I was suddenly just like, oh crap, I'm like, it's like, I'm lucky to still be here. I'm lucky to still be alive here with you guys. We got it plugged in, and I think, well, what I want to say is that right before this call, I have a couple of different volunteer positions that like I hold, right? And in one of these volunteer positions, I just got like basically like aggressive or like conflictual email from someone right before we started recording, and throughout our recording, I've noticed like different moments where it's like my mind is like wants to get pulled over into like thinking about that email, and like the the conflict or like the response or how I'm going to deal with it, or like, or just even to like put my attention on it, versus like in this living conversation that we're having. And to me, like, that's the fear, like that is like this, like it's like the pull, the contraction, this whole thought process and vibration almost like pull me into suffering and into struggle and into like uh, unhappiness, basically conflict. And I think what I'm just really feeling that because I obviously know I'm going to have to respond to the email, right? So I'm not going to bury my head in the sand. But what this conversation is leaving me with is to piggyback on what you were just saying, Rahul, about the adventure. It's like life is for enjoying. If I'm going to have some sort of like kind of charged interaction with someone, then so be it. Like I guess I'll have to do that. But you know, what is the spirit that I'm going into that with? And what is the consciousness that I'm bringing into it? And I think what I really want to bring forward is the gestalt of what we've been talking about here today, which is being in the flow and being uplifted, being buoyant, and trusting that like whatever interaction needs to be happening. Because my sense, I don't want to make assumptions, but my sense of the person on the other side of that email was not having a fun time when they wrote me that email. They were not improving with, with the flow of life the way that we're talking about right now. And so rather than get pulled down to that person's level, what I really want to do is stay connected with the spirit of what we're talking about here, because I want to, in the best case scenario, I want to lift both of us up in that conversation towards that, and help that person see too, like, hey, like life is a game. Like let's play this game. Let's enjoy ourselves doing it a little bit more. And I just think it's important for me, for my own personal process, to articulate that right now. And I just think it's just so important for all of us. So that's a big takeaway I'm having today, and I appreciate you both bringing all that home for me. Like I'm in this moment right now with this feeling of like that's really all that matters. If I can control that, then it's like your phrase, Mark, be the best and fuck the rest. Like all that other stuff can go to the wayside. It's not relevant to living the life that I'm trying to live, you know, um, and making the kind of impact, the influence on folks that I want to have. So I'm grateful for that today. And maybe in true improvisational fashion, maybe I'll just turn it over to you, Mark, to close our show, since the guest never closes the show. you know, um, Maybe you can take us out here.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you guys. I'm super grateful for both of you guys, Gabe and Rahul. You guys actually inspire me. I am a listener of your podcast. I listen to it, and I sometimes I put it on when I'm going to sleep, and it's because you guys have this soothingness to you, right? And so it's this soothingness spirit that calms me down, right? And so you hide it very well if you are fearful. Because I'm like, oh yes, I am gonna go to bed, and Raul's smooth, deep voice is gonna just permeate through my body, and Gabe's sexiness is just gonna it's gonna be so amazing. But
Your wife's like, "What are you listening
I know,
to?"
right? Yeah.
What?
What's
Sarah.
wrong over there? Yeah, I was gonna keep it PG, but I am again grateful, and that was my whole point. Is that my whole um, spirit is saying, let me encourage you by just being me, you know, because that's what I do best. I'm just me, and I know that I bring a certain element, and you guys bring a certain element to my life. And Raul, you may not even have known that. You didn't know that because we've never spoken before, but now when you listen. When you're doing podcasts, I'm listening, because it's helping me, right? And so with this cup full, or if your cup is empty, right? If your cup is full, then pour it out and share that with somebody, because you don't know who you're speaking to, right? And just by talking story, and just by pouring that, whatever that is, I don't know, you get to create that. Whatever that is, if you're saying, my cup is full, I'm feeling vibrant, I'm feeling some type of way, pour that out and give that to somebody, and they'll do the same thing for somebody else, and maybe to you. And if your cup is empty, what is it that you can do? What is it that you can do that maybe it's that little boy or that little girl that had a dream of something, and you just start that, whatever that is, you start it. You'll start to notice the cup being full again, right? For example, my wife likes to dance. So I'll put music on and we'll dance, or I'll spin her around and I'll dance with her. And that alone, that 30 seconds, she becomes alive, and that fills her cup up, right? And so maybe it's a pet, maybe it's the sun, going out in the sun. My daughter will have a bad day, and I'm like, babe, why don't you go in the sun and take a walk? Just take a walk, and she comes back more vibrant. And so whether your cup is full, whether your cup is empty, I was gonna say it doesn't matter, but you can use those two things, right? If it's full, give it away. If it's empty, be ready to receive, and allow that the source to pour into you, however that works. And maybe that's by you being creative in whatever you do. And so yeah, be blessed, be the best, and fuck the rest. Peace. That's all I got.